I want to welcome everyone who's here this evening and everybody who will be watching us, or listening to us, I guess, at home later on. Real briefly, I'd like to remind everyone of our agenda for this evening. First, we have the consent agenda, which is the minutes from the May 28th meeting. Then we have a site plan and design review for Parkway Villas. Then we'll have a preliminary plat for Parkway Villas. And then we're going to elect some new officers this evening. So that'll be it for this evening. I will remind everyone again that we are audio only, so please wait to be recognized so that we can get your names on the record when you're speaking. And that being said, we'll move to our consent agenda. Minutes from May 28th. Any discussion and or motions? Mr. Graham.
Mr. Chairman, I would move for approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for Mr. Sanders. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion has been approved. Minutes are in the record. We'll move on to the site plan and design review. And let's go ahead and hear those two things separately this evening. Mr. Hawley, if you would, please.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. Again, before you tonight is site plan and design review for approval of a 43-unit assisted living facility. This property is probably very familiar to all of you. It's located at the northwest corner of Southeast Moreland School Road and Southeast Adams Dairy Parkway. Consists of approximately 3.9 acres and is currently zoned NB, which is neighborhood business. The reason I say it's familiar, as you can see in the previous actions and approval in January of this year, the Planning Commission recommended approval of a rezoning application. At the time, the owner of the property had come in with a plan for some duplexes. The Planning Commission recommended approval of the zoning. However, that request was not approved at the City Council meeting. Also, at the same time, there was a preliminary plat and an PRO concept plan for the duplexes. The applications were denied. City Council approved an appeal of the preliminary plat application, but they did not approve the appeal of the planned residential overlay concept plan. So that is by way of a little history of what's gone on this particular piece of ground. Getting into the actual staff report for this particular proposal, there is access being proposed along Southeast Moreland School Road. They're currently, maybe help if we go to the site plan. There currently is an access in this area here, and that access is being moved to the west now so that it meets the 250-foot requirement from Adams Dairy Parkway. They will need to, of course, close that access, and in doing so, they'll have to put curb, gutter, and sidewalk through that area. That's noted in your staff report. The parking for this particular project, parking for an assisted living facility requires 1 space per dwelling unit. The development proposal is required to provide 43 parking spaces, with 3 of those being accessible. They are proposing 70 parking spaces, and they have provided the 3 accessible spaces. We already talked a bit about sidewalks, so although it's highlighted in your staff report, I won't go too much further than to say, yes, they will have to complete the sidewalk along Moreland School Road, and that would mean, particularly in that area down here where there currently is a driveway access. They have provided trash enclosures. They have 4 dumpster enclosures with this development. 3 of them are located on the main drive. One's located east of the community building. They will need to be screened using materials that match as closely as possible to the materials of the building, and that will have to be shown on the building permit plans and will be approved at a staff level through that process. On page 5 of 9 of the staff report, you can see the landscape calculations. They have met the minimum requirements of the city code and have provided 5 extra plant units above and beyond what is the minimum requirement. Stormwater detention, the proposed development wasn't accounted for in the overall Parkway Estates stormwater study, so they will have to review that and amend the stormwater study or provide a new study for just this piece of ground. That will need to be submitted to the Public Works Department and approved, and they'll do that prior to their final plat approval. Move over to the color renderings. That is the floor plan. Let's see if we can move that down. Excuse me. I'm not going to go over each of the floor plans. There is, they're proposing 4 plexes, 5 plexes, and then a community building, and those floor plans relate to those. But I'll go straight to the building elevations. And this particular elevation or rendering is a rendering of a 4-plex building. As you can see, the dwelling units are 1-story, primarily horizontal design elements. The buildings have hip roofs with gables. Features that are on the front and the rear elevations and to provide some variation and visual interest. The entryways to each dwelling unit are recessed below the gable roofs and then provides a front porch. Each dwelling unit also has covered porch at the rear. They have included shutters to add accents. The brick base runs horizontally along the front and the rear elevations. The exterior elevations are primarily a fiber cement lap siding. Excuse me, no building color or material variation really was shown in these elevations. If you have questions on that, I would direct those to the applicant. With that, staff is recommending approval of the site plan design review with 7 conditions, and I will stand for any questions, and the applicant is here as well to provide a presentation.
Do we have any questions for staff on this issue?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hawley. Would the applicant like to make their presentation?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the Planning Commission for the opportunity to present our applications to you tonight. My name is Roy Allen. I'm the attorney for the applicant. I have with me tonight Mr. Randy Salee, who is the builder and developer of this project. I have Mr. Matt Schlicht, who is the engineer that has designed the project. Matt has designed numerous of these projects in the Kansas City area. And I have Mr. Kurt Wallace, who's the architect that's designed the front elevations you've seen and all the architectural features of the project. Mr. Wallace has traveled from Columbia, Missouri to be with us tonight. And just by way of a little bit of background, his resume includes the development of hundreds, if not thousands, of these projects across the entire country. So he's got a very good history and familiarity with this type of assisted living project. So they'll be available to answer questions as well. Jim covered the overall idea for the project. What I wanted to do was zero in on the fact that this project will be an assisted living project, which is different from our previous application. We will have deed restrictions that provide that the residents have to be ages 55 and older, and the deed restrictions will also provide that all exterior maintenance is provided, all interior maintenance is provided, all house cleaning services inside are provided, and then we will have a community center which will house the facilities for common dining, common card games, social activities, movie night, also host clubs, whether that be whatever the interests of the residents are, whether it's quilting, fishing, hunting, whatever it is. So the community center will act as the hub for those types of activities, which is what's envisioned by the city ordinance on assisted living. Mr. Wallace has brought some packets for you to get a close-up visual of these renderings. And then I have, Mr. Wallace has also brought a couple of pictures of this project as built in Peculiar, Missouri, which this pattern has. Thank you. So you can see an actual picture of the project as built. Now, you may or may not have seen this information in your packets, so we just wanted to make sure that you had all the visual material available so you get a good sense of what the project will look like. The pictures that are being passed around, we don't have that for overhead, but one picture is of the building, and the second picture is of the community center that's in the project in Peculiar, Missouri. Randy, what's the name of that? Do you guys remember? Meadowview Estates in Peculiar, Missouri. Again, one of numerous assisted living projects that these gentlemen have designed here in the Kansas City area. So with that, I'll stand ready for questions, as will the individuals with me here tonight.
Do we have any questions for the applicant? Mr. Graham?
Mr. Chairman, I'm just curious, the level of assistance, when you say assisted living, is it just housekeeping, or are there other assistance provided as well?
If you'll notice in the definition of assisted living in the city ordinance, it excludes things like group housing, convalescent center, nursing home. That's not the level of assistance that this project's designed for. We're stopping short of that. We are staying on the level of these residents are able to take care of themselves, but what we find is 55 and older, these residents are going to be people that are downsizing. They're still capable of taking care of themselves, but they no longer want the hassles of home ownership. They don't want any mortgages. They don't want to take care of the outside, inside. They don't want to clean their house. They're done with that type of headaches, as I can tell you I personally am myself. I'm not quite there yet. That's the level of assistance for this type of project, and that's the case with numerous other projects like this one that have been built in the area.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? I've got a couple of questions.
Okay.
All of the paving that's going on in this is technically a parking lot, so it's not, there's not a street or anything like that.
That's correct.
Although a lot of it seems to kind of function that way as you're getting back to the back buildings and everything. There's a couple of places here where it looks like that drive gets very, very close to the buildings, especially some of the bedrooms in the buildings, and I would find that very disturbing if that was my bedroom in these buildings. Was there any consideration about trying to put a little bit more distance between the buildings and the roadway?
I'm going to, excuse me, I'm going to let either Mr. Schlicht or Mr. Wallace address that, because this design follows exactly what was done in, as I say, these numerous other projects in the Kansas City area. So if one of you guys want to address that.
Jim, is it possible to slip back to that site plan? Is it easy as just clicking back that way? Up in here? Maybe. Enter. Okay. Yeah. So Matt Slish with Engineering Solutions. So I think probably this is the close proximity of the entry or roadway of any sort that gets closest to any kind of a building area that you're kind of looking at. Is that one
That's
of
the first, that was the first one that drew
Right.
my attention, yes.
So what we tried to do is maintain, something similar to what we've used in the past sites, and it gives you back a curb, 5 foot of sidewalk, and then essentially 10 to 15 foot of green space kind of out in front of the building as kind of a general design rule. And so we tried to maintain that kind of layout throughout the whole site. The location of this drive was heavily driven by the proximity it has to have, or the distance it has to have from Adams Dairy Moreland School access point to the west. So this drive in here, that particular area, was smudged down a little bit because of that access point or access distance we had to have from there. But there still is sufficient room to basically have, like I say, in there we have, a sidewalk, some green space, and most of this area in here intending would be basically a landscaped area to kind of provide, while the distance is less than maybe that 10 foot of green space, some shrubbery or something around the edge of that to give some more of that feel, that distance away from the drive. So
Well, the
That's
drawing that you've given me, there's no landscaping between the street and that corner of the building.
correct. On the landscaping plan that we create is just intended to meet code. There'll be a site landscape plan that'll be developed as the site progresses. That develops things that are the more interior planting bed areas that are more closer to the site or closer to the front doors to dress it up, essentially. But that's not a code requirement or a code look in that sense of those plantings, I guess. We typically do not show those on the site plan.
And one of the things that was brought up from staff was the possibility of shifting that entrance over slightly. There's not a lot of room to do that, but we're perfectly willing to shift that over. I think the figure was thrown out about 10 feet to move it a little bit further away from Building 1, move it a little bit more centered. I think the city engineer has the authority under the ordinance to allow a variance like that from the intersection distance requirements of city ordinance. So we're willing to move that driveway entrance 10 feet for that particular.
It seems to me, and that would make me more comfortable with that particular corner right there. It seems like that's a particularly hazardous spot as, late at night or something like that, someone goes turning into that driveway, misses the turn, and ends up in someone's bedroom.
Really
Because that
bad.
corner of the building is someone's bedroom.
We'll be glad to move that, the 10 feet is what was, I think, proposed by staff. Yeah. And that would get it closer to center.
Staff's okay with that, too.
Okay. The other place where I have a similar, not a collision concern, but just a noise and a comfort concern is on that, the center building there that's on the, I guess it's Building 7.
Okay.
It seems like that street drive runs right along the back side of that building, again, very, very close to that building, all the way down that building. That, to me, would be potentially noisy. Again, not really safe. If I'm sitting on that patio right there, I don't want 5 feet away to have a street.
Mr. Wallace could probably address that. I think what you're going to find is that this design is typical for all of the projects that these gentlemen have designed, including proximity of parking lot to building, and that, to my knowledge, it has not been an issue with any residents wanting to live in these projects.
Yes, my name is Kurt Wallace. I'm with Wallace Architects in Columbia. And we have done probably 15 similar complexes like this just in the Kansas City area. You can actually see one of these. We finished one in Grandview, Raymore, Peculiar, one in Raytown, Paola, Kansas, Osawatomie, and they've all been very similar to this, and that's the pictures that I'm passing around.
I haven't seen those yet.
Okay, they should.
No.
And-
Actual photographs.
What you really find in these, as we've kind of done a survey of hundreds of these complexes around, we found that typically what you're going to have on here, your residents are going to be about 80% single ladies, they're going to be about 10% single men, they're going to be about 10% couples. That's just the way it is. And so what you find is really the trip generation in these parking lots and in these driveways is very slight, especially in the evening. You will probably not find, you might find an average of 1 car per unit. That would be probably the most you would find. Single ladies and single men aren't going to have 2 cars in the parking lot. So, when they travel is going to be during the day. So we have not found that to be an issue. Actually, the main bedroom windows are to the front and the back of that building. We actually spoke as early as this afternoon about not having some of the windows on some of the ends of the buildings, but we think that it kind of adds a little variation to it and kind of dresses that up. And so I really think you would not find that to be a problem just because of the traffic that goes through there is so slight, and it is mainly during the day. It's not at night. And really what we find, if you want to know the real truth during the nice days, most of the residents are sitting on those front porches is why we designed them that way. They're usually sitting out in the front porches, kind of seeing who's coming and going and visiting out there. So it's just really never has been an issue at all.
Okay. I'm not sure I understand limited trips, but I would think some of them would be sitting on that back porch as well.
I really think if you go through these, you'll find they're going to sit on the front porch. They may go out on the back porch occasionally, but they're going to use all their chairs and all their furniture will be on the front porches. That's kind of where they sit and watch everybody come and go.
Okay. You're probably the person I would want to ask about my next question, too. I'm very glad that you gave us this.
Okay.
Because this gives me an idea. I couldn't tell from any of the drawings we had exactly where all the sidewalks were inside the property. It said concrete sidewalk, but there were no lines or anything drawn, so I didn't really know what we were talking about. These sidewalks basically lead to the parking lots. So if you're in any building other than Building 7, there is no access to that community building other than through the parking lot. You're going to be walking through the parking lot to get from any point A to point B, no matter what. And the community building looks like it just sits right on the road. There's no setback at all on the front of that building. And that's very disconcerting to me that somebody's going to walk out of the front of that building and right into the parking lot.
Well, the sidewalk to that building that's actually the front of the building where the sidewalk is. Of the community building?
The rear of the community building faces
Okay.
That's actually the
north.
front. That's actually where the front of our community building will be, is at that sidewalk.
Okay?
That's the entrance into
See
this. That's the entrance into the building. I don't know if we can go back to the slide.
That's, so this is
I was going to see if the community building's there.
this side of the building.
The front is right here with the sidewalk and entrance, sidewalk here. This is the rear of the building. So, yeah, people are going to walk either across the street right here, across the street right here, but it has the access sidewalk in front and on that side. That's just the building layout itself.
Right, but what I'm looking at here is on this side of the building, then, the way this is drawn, that road is right directly adjacent to the building. It doesn't leave room for this porch and these air conditioning units, the way this is drawn.
Well, I'm sure the way it's designed, that area is sufficient to put that the porch and everything in there off of the, obviously
Right.
off of the parking lot. It's
So
abutting
this-
it, but
This community building is kind of oriented as it is on the site plan, if you look at it.
Right.
And so the lower portion, that is the front that would be to the sidewalk.
Okay, well, I wasn't clear on that, but even
And then
even that being the case, the back of this building again, you step out on that back porch and you're in the parking lot. I mean,
That's
there's
gonna be-
no buffer at all there, and the way it's drawn on here, there isn't even room for the 2 air conditioning units you've shown.
Well, we'd probably move those, quite frankly. I mean, I show that in the floor plan, but they probably wouldn't sit there. And my guess is in that rear porch, we'd probably have a handrail there or something that just kind of, it's just, that porch is really just something that people kind of go out and, I hate to say it, but quite often they just kind of go out there during a dinner or something, if it's warm, they'll go out in the back. So I don't know that those air conditioners would sit there. So I think
And
really
you
what
don't think there ought to be at least, I don't know, 6 inches of grass or something there between the,
Well, I think we could probably look at that, couldn't we, Matt?
I mean, it just seems to me like that building shouldn't be sitting directly on the drive like that.
Okay. We could make a landscape area between there and the driveway.
So,
Yeah, and I think that's probably a good idea. I think we should.
okay. Are there any other questions? Mr. Trozen?
Mr. Chairman, I was wanting to talk a little bit about the density, the number of units on the 3.9 acres and how that was determined. Because one of the decisions that the Plan Commission has is to look at the compatibility of the adjacent property in regards to setbacks, density, building size. And so I guess my question is, I guess I don't have a very good question pointed out, but if I calculated right, this is basically 1 unit per a little under 4,000 square foot of the land area.
Well, what we did was go with a plan that was one of the lowest densities possible for NB zoning and an assisted living project. In the NB zoning, we could have had 2-story buildings, 2.5-story buildings, used elevators, had approximately 3 times the number of units under that NB zoning. So we went with the less dense project.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments?
I have one.
Yes, Mr. Saunders.
Just crafting it out here on this, is it possible to go back with that community building back over, you can see that, back up there towards buildings 5 and 4, and where you can connect sidewalks a little bit better, and it's just so dense right down there.
Well, I'm going
I
to
don't
let...
know what the grading is there, I think it's pretty steep.
I think the grading's going to be an issue, and I think that the central location of the community building is a key feature versus putting it up in a corner. I'll let these gentlemen address that.
Yeah, I guess, back to the conversation of the community building and the whole site area and utilizing that parking area or drive lanes as your access. I mean, the campus is built, it is a walkability type campus. Everything is intended to be built at such grades that basically, not all of it will be classified in ADA guidelines, but it's basically within guidelines to where they all have the ability to walk, meander through piece to place. So the same with that community center, the access onto that drive and where it's located, the idea would be that patio would kind of roll itself into that parking lot area so that it kind of becomes, essentially one. So that basically you aren't going to have big determining lines or something like a apartment complex or residential unit that might be for younger families are going to have a lot more car traffic or things like that. The idea is that this can be more walkable. So the idea that community center being more centrally located was kind of our goal. Up in that northeast corner, it's possible, but the issue is that from where Adams Dairy is coming down, there's a large and significant amount of, grade change coming down there, as well as it's something kind of backing out of the way for the use of it, where it maybe is not something used as commonly as, if you're driving in, you see the community center and seeing activities going on, you have more of a potential chance or interest that you might actually stop and do something, in the facility versus if it's kind of backing away and you have to actually, if you were in building 1 or kind of these lower south buildings, 1, 7, or 8, it's a long walk for you to get up there, and if you didn't know what was going on, then it's something that might not perk your interest. So the idea of, we'll definitely work on something as the commissioner had asked, or getting something in there to get some more space in there, make it work, try to get a little more space or buffering in there, and adjust some of that curb area in there. But, you know, the overall campus and that walkability feature is kind of one of the big keys to this thing, is to make sure that everybody has good access to everything and everybody has good ability to get from A to B. And using the parking lot in something like this is not a big concern because, like I say, it's a low traffic area where you aren't intended to worry about somebody zooming through the parking lot you have to worry yourself about.
Excuse me, oftentimes these assisted living projects are built with 0 steps. The sidewalks, the driveways, the front porches, there's no step, there's no curbs. Now, the city of Blue Springs requires a curb, and so we're having to install that. But other than that, the idea is to make this flat. Again, 55 plus, these individuals, residents, they do not want steps. That's one of the things they don't want. So, any other questions?
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll bring it back up here for any discussion and/or motions. I do think that the moving that roadway even just a little bit will help somebody turning that corner. And yeah, if we can scoot that community building back even 5 feet or something, it just gets it. I understand 0 steps, but I also don't want somebody walking into a drive when they don't expect to be. So.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Cram.
I would move for approval of the Parkway Villas Site Plan Design Review, case number SPDR-05-14-4225, with the 7 staff comments. And then how do you want me to address the replacement of the community center, or do we need to?
I would like to see the community center be moved to the south by 5 feet, and I'd like to see that the entrance drive be moved to the to the east by 10 feet.
I would include those 2 comments as well. Is that good? Or do I need to restate
it's
them?
your motion. You can do whatever you want.
No, that's good. Adding 5 feet if they can get it to the one side and
10
moving the
feet on
driveway
the
10
drive.
feet.
You want to, yes.
If I could suggest, maybe if you just put in there that we create a 5-foot space, we might actually reduce the building down by a foot or 2 and, move everything around. So if we just say that we would need a 5-foot landscape space between the driveway and the community building, maybe that would be adequate.
Yeah, as long as the 5 foot is there, I don't care whether it's
Okay.
taken away from the building or the other side of the landscaping.
So we have the 7 staff comments, moving the entrance drive 10 feet to the
East.
and then creating a 5-foot buffer area between the
Okay.
driveway and the community building.
Okay, could do that.
Okay, I now have a motion with 2, and I have a second from Mr. Haney. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Site plan has been approved, and now we'll move on to the preliminary plat.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and you'll note that on the preliminary plat, very much is the same as with the site plan and design review. So in order to sort of avoid being redundant on a lot of this, we know that it's 3.9 acre parcel. We know that it is zoned NB. Commissioner Trozen, I know you were wondering about the density, and the actual density is 11.1 units per acre, is what it comes out to on the per acre basis. Your square footage was right. The key issues really with the preliminary plat, have to do with the construction of a water line that has to be completed and financial guarantee prior to the final plat approval. Again, the stormwater, which we already talked about, the sidewalk along Moreland School Road, we talked about that with the site plan and design review. I'm happy to answer questions if you have more specific ones on either of those two. Deed restrictions will be required to be submitted with the final plat and approved prior to the final plat going to the city council. And then probably another key issue, one that's pretty interesting in our code on the classification, is that the minimum livable floor area for this particular development is a Class J, 850 square feet per unit. It does, if you look at the building in its entirety, approximately 1,700 square feet per building, depending on whether it's a 4 or 5 unit building. But the key to this is that it's highlighted in bold on page 5 of 6 in the paragraph just before staff recommendations, and it talks about one classification may be imposed on a single block, and the key word in there is a single block and how a block is defined. A block is defined by a group of housing surrounded by streets. Because this is a cul-de-sac, there are no groups of housing that are surrounded by streets. So that being the case, the classification that they're proposing is acceptable by code. With that, staff is recommending approval of the preliminary plat application with 7 conditions, as shown on page 5 and 6 of the staff report. And I'll stand for any questions.
Do we have any questions for staff? Okay, thank you, Mr. Hawley.
Thank you.
Would the applicant like to add anything to their presentation?
We don't really have anything further, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are there any questions to the applicant concerning the preliminary plat?
Any questions, Mr. Chairman?
Sure, Mr. Trozen.
Is the applicant agreeable to the 7 conditions that are listed?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Allen, did you want to say something?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. It may be worthwhile to add an 8th condition regarding the 10-foot adjustment of the access to the east, because that would then affect limits of no access for the final plat as it goes forward.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll bring it back up here for discussion. Any discussion and or motions on the record, please?
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Duhan.
I move that we approve the Parkway Villas case number PP-05-14-4427 with the current 7 staff recommendations plus a pending 8th to move the drive 10 feet to the east.
Okay,
Did I get that?
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Mr. Sanders.
A second.
Have a motion and a second. All those, yes, did you want to say something?
I wanted to make sure that that condition on moving the 10 feet is under the assumption that the city engineer has the authority to authorize that and moving closer to 10 feet closer under ordinance.
Okay. All right. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Preliminary plat has been approved. And thank you all.
Okay, thank you all very much.
And I guess we move on now to an election of officers. It's always fun every year. Okay. I guess we'll do this one at a time. I have served my 2-year term limit right now, so we would open up the floor for nominations for chairman of the Planning Commission. Yes, Mr. Wallace.
I would like to nominate Mark Krogan.
I would second that nomination.
Okay, I have one nomination for Mr. Trozen. Do we have any other nominations? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you very much.
Okay, we move on to vice chairman. And obviously, Mr. Trozen would not be able to do that since he's just been promoted. Any nominations for that office?
Mr. Chairman?
Ms. Duhan.
I would like to nominate Travis Graham for vice chairman.
I'd second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any other nominations? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. And Mr. Graham, I guess you'll be sitting up here next time.
Looks that way.
And then we'll move on. Mr. Graham is currently our representative to the Board of Adjustments. He can continue in that role if he'd like, if people want him to. If not, I'd open it up for nominations. Mr. Graham, do you have any objections?
I was just wondering if Ginger wanted to move up to the rep and I can step down to the alternate if,
Whatever, I wouldn't say that. I'm agreeable to that.
I would not, yeah, I would nominate Commissioner Duhan as the Board of Adjustments representative.
Okay, I have a motion. Any other nominees? All those in favor? Aye. And as a alternative representative for the Board of Adjustments?
Mr. Chairman, I would nominate Travis Graham.
All right. Have a motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Sorry, I'm writing as fast as I can here. Okay, Historic Preservation Commission. I'm currently serving on that in that position. I have no objections to continuing. If anyone else would like to do it, I would certainly open that up for them as well.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr.
I would like to move that we keep Ken Phillips as the representative for historic preservation.
Second?
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And Technical Review Committee, Mr. Bartolotta is currently serving in that position, and he's not here to defend himself this evening.
Careful what you miss at a time like this.
Any nominations?
I like
Yes.
to nominate Phil Barlotta for the position.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Development Advisory Commission. Mr. Sanders has been doing that.
Keep doing it, sure.
Mr. Allen.
I really don't know if this is even working, but just to confirm, the DAC will be meeting at least once, if not several times, in reviewing the Unified Development Code update. So just a heads up that whoever does serve on that will actually be meeting.
That's all right.
Do I have a nomination?
Mr.
Graham.
Chairman, I would nominate Commissioner Sanders for the Development Advisory Commission representative.
Second from Mr. Haney. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Solid Waste Management Commission. Mr. Abbott has been doing that for a number of years. It is his area of expertise.
Continue doing unless somebody else wants to do it.
Any takers? Nomination. Make it official.
I move that we keep George Abbott in the position of Solid Waste Management Commission representative.
Second.
Second.
Mr. Haney. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Downtown Review Board representative. Ms. Banks is currently in that position, and again, she's not here to defend herself. Nominations.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Duhan.
I move that we keep Lynn Banks as the Downtown Review Board representative.
Second.
Second from Mr. Graham. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And Downtown Review alternate is currently Mr. Trozen.
I think I'll pass.
Well, since you're moving here to the center seat, is there anybody else who would like to work with the Downtown Review Board?
I've been on before, so I would again, follow his sister.
Okay,
I would nominate Commissioner Haney for the Downtown Review Board, alternate
Oh.
representative.
second from Ms. Duhan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Got that taken care of for another year. We move on to other business. First, I'd like to say it's been a lot of fun up here for the last 2 years. I am looking forward to actually sitting down and amongst everyone else, yeah. So, Mr. Trozit.
Well, Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the Plan Commission, as the vice chair now and upcoming chair, we just want to thank you very much for your 2 years of service as the chairperson. In fact, I think in this last year, I didn't have to chair a meeting at all, so you had perfect attendance. I greatly appreciate that, and we just appreciate your dedication and service not only as the chairman, but also to the Plan Commission.
Thank you for the comments. And that being said, I will not be at the next meeting, so. Mr. Allen, is there any other business that we need to discuss?
Yes, I will not be at the next meeting either, but we do have tentatively planned the comprehensive plan adoption. So just a reminder, we do need and strongly desire all of your comments back to Jim or Karen or me, however you want to get them to us by the end of this week. If you have any comments on the draft, corrections, typos, anything, swapping out pictures, anything, minutia to the bigger picture. We also have, I believe, Price Chopper North final plat moving forward, which is essentially, I think, the last piece in that puzzle for them to move forward with their expansion and renovation project at Price Chopper North. So those are two things, big projects, both of them for different reasons, but next meeting.
Just the one other thing that I wanted to mention is that I haven't forgotten some information that needs to get back to you on the comprehensive plan. I know there was questions about implementation, there was questions about other plans that have been adopted that are similar in style, and then there's questions about the legal defensibility and how all of that works. Haven't forgotten those questions. We're in the process of putting that together. We will get it back to you.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to add to tonight's? I would like to invite everyone on Saturday the 21st. The Historical Society is having their annual garden tour, one of our main fundraisers for the year. And there are no other business. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Ms. Duhan, second from Mr. Graham. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.